Hi, I'm Leslie Meredith with Breakbulk Events and Media, and I am here with Alexandra from Trace, who just finished her presentation at Breakbulk Europe in Antwerp on bribery compliance. Do we call it bribery compliance, Alexandra?
Anti-bribery compliance is more usual.
Anti-bribery. Well, tell us what's most important for people to know on that subject?
I think in this industry it's important to recognize that there's some cause for optimism. It's a really challenging issue, and I understand that moving high-value cargo from port to port, you can start to feel isolated. You can start to feel as if it's just you and an extortionate government official on the other side of the transaction. But in fact, companies are getting out ahead of this issue. They're taking more responsibility for their own compliance programs, putting into effect codes of conduct, doing some training, and especially training their team on how to say no gently, diplomatically, and effectively to those demands.
Is it always easy to know when perhaps a little extra is expected? I mean, do people need training in how to recognize maybe a risky situation?
I think in this industry it's usually pretty obvious. It's when you're at your most vulnerable, you have expensive cargo that needs to be offloaded, for example, and somebody starts strumming their fingers and talking about how busy they are or what their expectations are from the deal, and it's always euphemistic language like, what can we do so that we both win? Or, I'll have to work late. How can I be compensated for that? Nobody ever asks for a bribe, but you usually know.
And how do you counsel people to respond in those kinds of situations?
Well, I talked about this a little bit in my presentation. I think the goal is to find a whole lot of ways to not exactly say no, to derail the demand without saying no, which can be very confrontational and in some markets can be quite dangerous. But finding other ways to say, you would like to and your company would like to be able to be a good corporate citizen, but of course you can't make any unlawful payments. One of my favorites is just having your embassy on your speed dial on your iPhone or your smartphone and saying, I'm sure what you're asking me for is appropriate, or you wouldn't be asking for it, but let me just check with my embassy first, and if they agree, then of course I can make this payment. Usually if you put up even a small amount of resistance, the demand just stops. They'll look for an easier target.
Good. And then does the work go ahead typically?
Well,
is it a bluff?
well, you have to be ready to call your embassy, but what's the harm in that? Your embassy, of course, is going to tell you not to pay, but I've never actually had anybody's bluff called. I've used the tactic myself, and it's one of many, and it may sound a little silly to some, but nobody lets you dial the phone. They call it off short of that.
That's good, and I think that's great advice, and we so appreciate you sharing that with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.